pretty much every single time, it's the person with the best video ad that wins. It just makes such a huge difference. We can swap out the first 10 to 15 seconds of an ad on YouTube and see double, triple, quadruple, or even greater the profitability on that campaign, just because we hook more relevant people in the first 15 seconds. It's huge.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said you grew a subscription business, but you were not savvy on funnels yet, because, you know, typically, I mean, I'm literally building a course. Well, I'm building a series of courses right now. One of them really focuses on how to build a digital, an online funnel based, you know, kind of product stack business. And it's really one of my fundamental premises is that subscription businesses are amazing, but they require complementary products, you know, woven through a funnel in order to profitably acquire businesses into a subscription model. There's very few subscription models where you can just go run paid advertising and acquire customers at profit. Usually you got to wait 4 months to pay for the ads, you know, for the subscriptions. But the fact that you were able to make a subscription business work without a funnel, without a value ladder, that's pretty intriguing to me. And I'm guessing that it's because you were using a lot of viral advertising and leveraging a lot of media. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing. So it kicked off with the press, right? So it kicked off with loads of press attention, and then that natural kind of viral bubble, like everybody's dream, right? And you kind of think that once that happens, like we certainly got into that bubble of thinking, oh, we're made for life now. Basically, you know, we've got this huge viral like explosion. And then suddenly what you find with organic virality is that it's kind of like a bell curve. Like it shoots up and then it peaks off and then it shoots down again. And we're like, oh crap, what are we gonna do now? You know, like I'd actually moved down to the south of Spain. I was like, I'm not gonna live in England and just I can do this all from my laptop. We outsourced everything eventually to a co-packer, moved down to the south of Spain, and then suddenly like that, everything just started dropping from underneath us. I'm like, oh crap, what are we gonna do? And around about the same time as well, our co-packer, the actual, you know, the people at the factory that were packing stuff for us, they got liquidated with no interest, with no notice whatsoever. So we had to fly back to the UK, drag all of our stuff out of their factory. We just reinvested a ton of money into the business to make the product better and to just generally kind of like uplift the site and make everything look better. So we had all of our money in the business, and then this happened. We had to find a premises. Ended up coming to Bristol, where I am now. And we're talking about dark points of entrepreneurship, you know, the dirty, ugly truth just before we jumped on. And that was definitely one of them. I was basically bare bones, absolutely no money whatsoever. It was all in the business. And suddenly this business that, you know, I thought I'd finally made it was starting to crumble around me. And funny enough, it was around about that time that I came across a guy called Frank Kern. Yeah. And I invested a lot of money that I didn't have in one of his courses. And funnily enough, you know, I thought I was going to step away from this thing with loads of insights, loads of, you know, like granular tactics and strategies that I could deploy. But really, it was just this one kind of paradigm shift that I got from it, which was the most reliable way to create wealth is to turn advertising into profit. And that if you can put $1 in on one side and get $2 out, and you can keep doing that, then you're home straight, right? So that just like flicked something in my mind. And it was shortly after that we started combining the viral posts that we'd already been doing, all the viral kind of research that I've been figuring out about how pages like BuzzFeed, how products were designed, etc., how videos were shot that went viral online. We started combining that with paid traffic, and suddenly all our problems were pretty much over overnight. It blew up yet again.
Well, you're not really any kind of a digital entrepreneur until you've bought a Frank Kern course, pretty much. So, I mean, he's the OG. You know, we've all bought him. I mean, I bought his mass control product 12 years ago. Yeah. Back when he was he was just a surfer in La Jolla, making millions and hanging out on the beach. But no, brilliant market. I mean, for anybody that doesn't know who Frank Kern is, change that and you'll automatically be better at business. And that is, I believe that's actually the headline on his, I don't know if it's on his website or his Facebook page, but it basically says the most reliable, exactly what you said, the most reliable way to make money in business is to convert advertising into profit.
It's genius. Is that a whole paradigm shift just can completely change your life? You know, when you understand that, I'm like, yeah, sure, there's things you need to get in place. You need to get your offer right. You need to get a few things straight, but it's massive. Funny enough, you know, a few years later, I ended up working on Frank's team. I've been doing with Chief Posties, the subscription business, and with a few other things caught the interest of his team, and I ended up helping him to grow his agency. So yeah,
oh, cool.
It's crazy how these things can turn around really fast, right? From one step to another.
Why don't you, if you would, share a little bit about kind of how you got into being an entrepreneur? Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, one thing that we discussed on my show the other day was the fact that we're both musicians, right?
Yeah.
And that's very much how I started out. And like, so I was trained really intensively as a classical violinist from when I was like 6 years old, like really intensively. And to the extent I'm comfortable saying it now because I don't play at all anymore. But like I was the child prodigy kind of thing, like really like blown up everywhere. So I kind of followed that path, and eventually when I was like 16, 17 years old, I kind of discovered like all the fun things in life and decided to like rebel. And ended up, long story short, becoming a punk rock violinist, touring all over the world with a rock band, which is really cool, right? But eventually, kind of figured out that wouldn't pay the bills, so I had to figure out something which would. So just on a whim and a kind of a bit of help from a friend, I got into a corporate job and spent the next couple of years kind of loathing my life to a certain extent. Like, I mean, it wasn't that bad, but it was kind of working for somebody else, and I always had this kind of creative spark inside me that needed to be expressed, that needed to be kind of out there, So, eventually back in 2015 now, so about 5 years ago, I just decided to do it. I remember I was sat on a beach on the other side of the world in Australia. I'd just been sent out there and I had to go, ended up with a week off. So I went and sat on this beach. I got drunk out of my mind and smoked cigarettes until I could hardly breathe. And I kind of found myself in that, like the stereotypical epiphany moment, sitting on this beach thinking, right, if I'm going to make a dramatic change in my life, I kind of need to do dramatic things. And stopping drinking then seemed like it was a dramatic thing. I've been touring all over the world as a musician, like drinking heavily, smoking heavily. So that seemed like a huge thing at the time, but it turned out that was the best possible thing that I could do. In 2015, I threw myself into entrepreneurship with no idea what I was doing. Started about at least 10 businesses in that first year. Most of them completely flopped. I had, no idea about the idea of focus or the idea of, like actually focusing your attention on one thing. But two of those businesses actually carried on through anyway, both subscription e-commerce businesses. So it was my first kind of delve into online businesses. I was kind of determined at first that I wasn't going to do an online business. I wanted to do something real, something physical, because I've been working with computers for so long. And but eventually it just so happened these two businesses worked out really well. The first one was a hot sauce subscription box business, which I sold within a year for relatively modest, but quite nice to have done within 12 months. And then the other one was the thing that you mentioned just a second ago, which is the grilled cheese sandwich subscription business. And it's kind of a crazy story. It's the thing that always piques people's interest, right? Because it seems so wacky, and on the face of it, it's like, what the hell is that? Like, why would somebody possibly come up with that idea? But it's really interesting, and it really bears relevance to what we do today at Grip, because the way that idea formulated was by looking at the marketplace and analyzing what was going on, what people were paying attention to, what the press was writing about, and then creating something which adhered to all those principles. So basically, we looked at what the press was writing about, what people were paying attention to. We knew that our target demographic we wanted to go after were female, aged 20 to 35. We were looking at what they were interested in, the kind of publications they were reading, stuff like BuzzFeed, all that kind of stuff. And then also the news publications that they were reading. And what was really hot at the time, Dollar Shave Club had just sold, or were just about to sell within a few years for $1 billion.
Right.
So not only did that show that subscription boxes were hot, it also showed that press were really, really interested in it as well. So we knew that we could kind of ride that wave. So we wanted to do a subscription box. We knew that the things that got shared online, and this is really sort of to bear relevance to what we do now, is unusual things, unusual combinations, combining 2 or 3 different trends. So we combined these different trends of unusual flavors, unusual flavor combinations. Grilled cheese was going crazy on BuzzFeed and Food Post, all that kind of stuff, and subscription boxes. So we combined all 3. We made a grilled cheese sandwich subscription box. So thought, this might work, theoretically, like in principles, it should work. And sure enough, the next day we were featured in a national tabloid newspaper. Within a week, we're in global press. Next week later, I was getting interviewed on radio shows, every single BBC radio station in the country, which is radio station network in the UK. And yeah, it all took off from there, really. That was kind of my furor into entrepreneurship.
So, I mean, the grilled cheese subscription box business seems like, immediately my mind is like working through the logistics of that. Like, what are you physically shipping? Is it like Is it prepared grilled cheeses that are ready to be grilled? Is it individually packaged ingredients with like a recipe card? Like, what are you actually delivering in that business?
Yeah, so we took on, so the actual package itself was 2 slices of bread and then 3 components. So a cheese, it could be like any cheese, or it could be mascarpone, or it could be mozzarella, or whatever else. And then 2 different ingredients. So it could be marmalade, it could be raspberry jam, it could be chocolate, it could be Nutella, it could be bacon, for example. And they all made individual flavors, and we kind of made it addictive. This whole project was like a petri dish of what works in marketing, what grabs people's attention, what engages people, what keeps people subscribed to things, right? And it was that kind of gamification of it. So we made kind of like, there's a thing called trump cards in the UK. It's the nearest thing would probably be like baseball cards. So baseball cards of each flavor, and it was like wacky flavors like French onion soup and blueberry smoothie. So people were literally collecting these stacks of flavors, and it was like they were paying for a sandwich every single month, deconstructed. Like, again, in principle, it seems crazy, right? People are paying for the deconstructed elements of a sandwich, a decent amount of money as well to cover the postage and pay for the product. But it was this addictive, kind of fun, like community and idea that we built around it. And that's really what it is, it was an idea. And this is what kind of really kindled this journey into advertising, which has taken me to now running the agency Grip and where it is today.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see it. You're right. It superficially sounds a little bit ridiculous, but I can see it, how like maybe you'd have 10 friends and they're like, hey, let's all sign up for this. And once a month we'll have a party and we'll all cook our grilled cheeses together. So like it has that real community component, or could have a community component to it. Did you nurture that through either the marketing or the product itself? Was there some way that you were creating webbing to stitch people together?
Yeah, for sure. So that idea of community, we went through various different things. I have no idea about internet marketing at this stage, no idea whatsoever. Shortly after we closed that business, I came across the concept of funnels. I was like, crap. Like, if I don't know about funnels, I would have made a lot more money. But so yeah, if anyone doesn't know about funnels, go Google it right now. But yeah, like, so we did all sorts of different things with it. We started Facebook communities. We tried making our own communities offsite. The thing that really worked was Facebook communities. And we pretty much built, in terms of marketing, we pretty much built that business on memes at first, memes and the just like blowing up Facebook pages, which was a lot more possible to do back then in 2015, 2016. And just getting massive engagement and just nurturing that engagement through Facebook organic, and then eventually Facebook paid, which was on it kind of took on a whole new lease of life after that point.
Yeah, it is. And I tell people this a lot. I'm really glad you brought this point up about advertising. So many people on the internet, obviously with Entre, we deal with thousands of new entrepreneurs a month coming in and going, okay, I want to start a thing, right? I want to get a business going. I want to make some money. And so often there's this mentality, and I totally get it, because I used to be broke or struggling, or, have a less of an abundance mindset about the world. And I used to think, you gotta start with a strategy around saving money and being responsible with your money and being a good steward and all the stuff they teach you in school about. And I'm not saying that stuff's not right, but in business, the goal is to get to where to as quickly as possible, get to where you can spend money to grow your business. And so I tell people, I hear people talking about their Instagram and their Facebook and their Twitter account and their blog that they're setting up and all this. And I'm like, what's your offer? How much can you acquire a customer for? And what's the lifetime value of that customer? And what's the short-term return on ad spend to acquire that customer? That's all I care about. Because, if you can spend, like you said, if you can spend $100 and acquire a customer that's worth at least $100 in the first week and maybe $200 in this after 60 days, now you're not trying to save money. Now you're literally trying to spend money. Your goal becomes, how many ad platforms can I get up and running on? How many converting ads can I create? How many ad campaigns can I run on those platforms? How much money can I pour into this machine? And that is a lot more fun way to grow a business than to waste hundreds or thousands of hours screwing around with all this stuff that theoretically can work if it catches on. And, credit to you for doing the research to figure out how to create a viral phenomenon. but those are pretty few and far between.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can't, lightning doesn't usually strike a person twice. And so I just think it's so much more interesting to like, just figure out how to make money with paid ads.
Yeah.
You know, Entre, we grew 3,000% last year. It was not through viral content. It was just through every month trying to spend the entirety of what we made the previous month on more ads.
Yeah.
You know,
and this was a huge realization, you know, throughout doing that, throughout going through the unsustainable viral kind of fluxes. I actually had a mentor back then, this guy called Ed, who he worked at a company called Rocket Internet. Definitely worth a Google for anybody who's interested in any form of entrepreneurship. Rocket Internet are a really cool company. They are apparently, they're touted as the most hated company in Silicon Valley. They basically copy startups in Silicon Valley, make an EU version or like a European version, and then eventually like they grow it like crazy. And then sell it back to the US version for like billions of dollars within months. It's such a crazy company. But I was in Berlin, and I went along to their headquarters, not really knowing much about them, and getting chatting to this guy called Ed Biden. His name was super smart guy, product owner at the company, and he became a mentor of mine. Again, like intrigued by the grilled cheese thing at first, like what the hell is this guy talking about, and then eventually intrigued by it. And he's like, yeah, okay, let's talk. So yeah, one thing that he really spoke to me about when I was talking about potentially getting investment for that company, one thing that he said is that investors are never going to be interested unless you have a sustainable way of growing it. So you can't rely on that, like, oh, well, we got some press and then we got a load of customers in. Investors are smart people, right? And there's a reason that they have enough money to invest, because they set up systems, processes, they look at KPIs, they look at, you know, the fundamentals of a business, and they know that a business requires a steady inflow of leads. So really, that was like the kind of almost the pre-springboard to me really getting interested in ads. And that's the true combination, though, to be honest, Jeff. And that's what we do at Grip. So at Grip, that's my agency. I'll tag down ads that don't suck. And our whole intention with it is to take the direct response principles and like great offers. So many people have great offers, you know, but the ads suck. They're terrible. They just don't do them justice. And all these systems, these processes, mean that, in all honesty, some people get away with like pretty crap landing pages, pretty crap offers, pretty crap products, because they've got the systems, the processes, the direct response principles dialed into a key, to a T. So what we do at Grip is take those things which are already, you know, the kind of rocket fuel on that side, and we have rocket fuel on our side as well to really capture people's attention.
So yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how to capture people's attention in the world today, because, you know, again, in the last 12 months, we've run a lot of YouTube ads and Facebook ads too, and Instagram ads. But I would say especially YouTube ads, because it seems to be the most scalable platform. Facebook, you typically run into either compliance challenges, because on Facebook, like if 4 people in the feed say, I don't like this ad, you know, Facebook's all AI driven. They might just decide, oh, this is, you know, we don't like this ad either. And next, you know, now your account's down and it takes you a month to get it back up. So Facebook, you have a lot of fits and starts. And certainly, you know, we've spent a lot of money. You can spend a lot of money on Facebook, but YouTube, I've discovered, is kind of the biggest, bluest ocean out there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Grip primarily focuses on YouTube ads, right?
We do multi-channel, actually. So we do both. We got fantastic media buyers on both sides of the equation. Facebook media buyers have been Facebook media buying since before there was even a pixel, like really smart people.
Okay.
So, and yeah, on the YouTube side of things as well, we're really putting a lot of focus on YouTube, especially for high ticket as well, because typically what we see in terms of high ticket stuff, where you do have a more substantial funnel where it's built out, you've got higher ticket, like 5, 10, 20, 100K products, is that you get a better quality of lead on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they're also generally the kind of people who are in the mindset to sit down and watch long form presentations, which if you're selling a high ticket program, then you want somebody to be able to sit down, to be in the mood to sit down and watch that webinar, right? Or it's usually a webinar or ESL.
And they're more interested. They're of more of an educational mindset. People on YouTube are there to learn how things work. Yeah. And so you can get a lot of mileage by teaching them how things work. Whereas on Facebook, they kind of just more want to be entertained or have or you know, chit chat.
Yeah.
Or be obnoxious.
It's yeah, or all three. Yeah. It's really interesting actually looking at the dynamics of them both. There's certain similarities. So For example, in both, you've got the first 3 to 5 seconds to really capture somebody's attention. On YouTube, they can literally skip afterwards. On Facebook, that's typically how long people will stop on a video if they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
So there's similarities there for sure, but then there's certain structural differences. So for example, I mean, on YouTube, you don't get charged until somebody watches 30 seconds of your ad. So there's certain strategies you can play in there whereby you capture as many people's attention in the first 5 seconds, and then you try and boot as many people out that aren't relevant in the next 25. So you're not paying for them, right? So we actually, when we make video ads on YouTube, then we use a modular format. So we create our scripts in modular sections. So we do usually at least 6 different hooks to the same ad, and then we'll do 1 to 2 different core sections, and then 2 to 3 different call to actions as well at the end, just to see which works best. And then what that means is that you can Frankenstein up these ads, and you can turn them into loads of different ads, 10, 15, even 100 different versions of the ad. And really, and again, like drawing parallels between both platforms, the people who really win, creative test, they creative split test.
Oh yeah.
The targeting has got easier and easier. There's a lot of stuff coming in with iOS 14 on Facebook right now, which may or may not make that slightly more difficult going forward. But generally, in fact, I'm going to say pretty much every single time, it's the person with the best video ad that wins. It just makes such a huge difference. We can swap out the first 10 to 15 seconds of an ad on YouTube and see double, triple, quadruple, or even greater the profitability on that campaign, just because we hook more relevant people in the first 15 seconds. It's huge, massive.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear you describing your process. I mean, so late 2019 and first 4 months of 2020, that was when we were really getting our ad optimization, I would say, mostly dialed in. I mean, you never stop optimizing, right? We're constantly split testing every little thing you can think of, but that was when we were really dealing with the structural architecture of the ads. Like you just said, you've got your hooks, and I did that same exercise. We went through a couple different YouTube ad trainings. I'm trying to remember what we went through. We went through John Penberthy's. You probably know John. We went through Alaric Hex. You probably know Alaric. Mm-hmm. So we went through a couple. We hired a consultant, and I mean, we just crowdsourced all the knowledge we could about YouTube ads. And the consensus was exactly what you just said. You test multiple hooks that essentially have to hit in the first 5 to 6 seconds. And then we actually, it was a little bit later, we were introduced to the idea of a filter in the next 25 seconds. So you hook as many people as you can, and then you want to repel all the people that you don't want to pay for after 30 seconds. And then you have kind of, like you said, your core, which is really your value delivery component of the ad, where you teach them, or you open their eyes, or you give them that aha light bulb moment where they like you because you've helped them expand their mind or whatever. They feel some affinity, and then you can make your call to action. And we did the same thing. We modularized it until we pretty much knew what the best hook, the best filter, the best core, and the best CTA was. And then once we thought we knew that, then we went back and shot one through composed ad that captured the best of those elements, just so that it was even more congruent. And, we've developed other ads, but even the other ads we develop, we literally don't change the script. We just change the background.
Yeah.
So once you get that winning ad formula, like I did one in the lobby of the ClickFunnels Funnel Hacking Live event. And then I took that exact, literally word for word. Like, I've got the script memorized. I could do it right now. I can say, hi, hey, big news. Did you know that in the United States, Fortune magazine says there's 1,700 new millionaires created every single day, and that's over 4,000 around the globe, and Like, I literally know the script now. And I did it again. I did it. I went to Park City, and I did it at the base of a mountain. Then I did it at my house, driving my Can-Am, my off-road vehicle. And then the script is the magic, right? But I've been doing this for 12 years. Like, I have a pretty good knack for this. How do you work with somebody that isn't like a direct response guy? Do you find that it's hard to get, and I know other agency owners, so I kind of already know the answer to this question, but like, is it hard sometimes to get people that are really passionate and knowledgeable about their business, but they're not used to presenting it through a direct response delivery style, and to get them to turn that corner and kind of basically do what you tell them?
Oh yeah. We work with a few. We work with some like really bland businesses. I want to say bland. They're incredible people. They do incredible things, but it's stuff that's just not sexy, right? And you know, in that case, it's likely that the business owner is not going to be like a front-facing personality. So, like, say for example, you're the face of Entre, you're kind of the attractive character of Entre.
Right.
Like, often in those scenarios, then there's not going to be that. But in those cases, then we go with a different style of ad. And it's with YouTube, with high ticket stuff, with B2B stuff, it's almost always informative. But I think people kind of get trapped into this this kind of sinkhole of, if it's informative, it's got to be straight ahead, it's got to be boring. Whereas again, our taglines, ads that don't suck. Like, if you can inject a little bit of humor in there, if you think about it, this is the first time somebody ever comes across your business, they're making a decision which will form the basis for everything to think about you going forward, right? So if you can inject little bits of humor into that, if you can inject some kind of entertainment or interest, then it's huge. It's massive. You see the impact on click-through rate, on conversion rate, and also on ACV as well, on average cart value. It's crazy the difference that, if you make a better ad, like everything that comes before the click, the impact that has. Because if you have a better relationship with somebody before they click through, and say you've got a book funnel that sends somebody from, say, a free plus shipping book to a $19 order one, to a $47, to a $97, to a $297, to a $997, then you might expect, the average order value, the average cart value of that funnel to be somewhere between $100 to $300. If you put a better ad on the front of that, you got somebody that likes you more before they go through that funnel. They're not going to be thinking as soon as they click buy, which I know I've done this. I'm sure you've done this. Okay, well, I'm going to buy this thing, but I'm not going to buy any of the upsells.
Right.
I'm going to buy any ATOs. By the time they get to actually buy, they're thinking, I like this person, or I like this business. They kind of resonate with me. They've got that humor. And that's huge, like, really, ads are just a blank canvas for putting out your personality as a business, or as a person, as an attractive character. And you really can, you're reaching so many people, you can really resonate with people. And I think this is a huge thing for people to understand, is you can really resonate with people that you'd like to do business with. You like, there's lots of them out there. It's the beauty of the internet. You can actually reach these people that you genuinely love to do business with and to deal with.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to let you know you can get a free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut, which will show you the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy. And there's a special link just for this episode in the description. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. As you're talking, I'm thinking about one of the lessons that we've learned over the last year, which is so many business. We learned it for ourselves, but I think it's true in general. It's like there's a tendency to really, really focus on your sales process. Maybe it's a video sales letter. Maybe it's a long form, direct sales letter, written sales letter. Maybe it's your sales script, your phone script. Maybe, it's all this stuff. And that's where you kind of feel like is the fulcrum of your business, is like where the sale happens. But what we found is when we improve our ads, it takes so much pressure off the sales letter because they already like me, or they already trust me, or they're already pre-sold. And so like we were able to shorten a sales video. We had like a 24-minute sales video. And every time we tried to shorten it, the conversion, the conversions might not go down, but the average cart value and the lifetime value would not hold up, right? It was like the quicker sale would get a quicker yes, but it would not get as committed of a yes. Yeah. And we just couldn't do it. We wanted to shorten the sales video because we're like, we don't want a 24-minute sales video. The call to action isn't until like 15 minutes. We wanted to compress it. But every time we tried, we would lose dollars. And then we improved our ad. And when we put more social proof into the ad, we put a stronger hook in the ad, we put a stronger filter mechanism in the ad. Frankly, we showed off a little bit more of my credibility, like my 8-figure awards and just anything we could put into the ad to like get people pre-sold. Then we were able to take the sales video from 24 minutes to 14 minutes and the CTA from 15 to 9, and everything held up. Plus we just got a lot more people in because it was a better ad. And so I think that's really interesting what you're saying, that like a lot of people could be blaming or putting pressure on their sales process when it could be what comes before the sale could be the biggest lever that you have to pull.
Yeah. It's huge, man. Obviously it goes without saying, you got to have an offer that people want. Like advertising is never going to solve an offer that doesn't sell. But really it can be the fuel that starts a massive bonfire, the likes of which you can't even imagine when you get it right. And, testament to this, one of our students, I actually have a Facebook ads course, which we kind of created off the back of some success which I had with a client last year with Facebook ads actually coming up. So they had a SaaS, they launched their SaaS, they do kind of launches, and then they closed down the software for a couple of years, and they'll come back and they'll relaunch it. And I said, hey, they actually asked me to do some retargeting, and I said, hey, if I'm going to do the retargeting, let's do a cold campaign off the back of it as well. Let's springboard off all the pixel seasoning that we're going to be doing by getting thousands of buyers in. So we did, and we took that off basically from ground zero to 1.4 million in like 3 or 4 months, like a simple $67 SaaS offer. So off the back of that, he's kind of got this whole list of people, and they were asking, how the hell do you do this? So we put together a course, like a Facebook ads course, just kind of on a whim almost, and we're actually just about to launch it to paid traffic next week actually. But a few of the guys that went through in our beta program, there's a guy called Walt, who's actually become a client now, a really great guy. And he spent $50,000 on Facebook ads over the last few years by his own admission, without earning more than about $10 or $15 back, just testing, trying to figure it out, trying to get it right. And then he went through the scale course and started making profit hand over fist. So he was profitable by, I think, 2 or 3 days after he launched. So the big thing about this though, and the interesting thing is that the scale course, the first 3 weeks we're focusing entirely on creative. And these beta users, they paid like a few grand to get into the program. And they were like, I spent thousands of dollars and we've not even touched Facebook ads yet. What's going on? We're not even inside Ads Manager. It's like, just honestly, bear with me. And then sure enough, so we take them through a whole process of making their flagship ads, which is a particular format of ad that we make at Grip. And then a whole suite of ads. So stuff for the front end, for cold prospects, where you're going to pick up some people, right? You're going to get some conversions when they first see it. They're like, yep, this works. I like the look of this. It can help me. You get some people through then. But then you have to have that's the top of funnel ads. Then you have to have the middle of funnel and the bottom of funnel as well. So for people who are in a consideration phase, then you want to start showing them testimonials of people you worked with, cuts up in a certain way. And then at the bottom of the funnel, you want lots of image ads, loads of different image ads, 10 to 15 different images, all in dynamic, creative, ready to test and see what works best. Lots of different copy, and that's really where you're vacuuming up all the crumbs, all the last bits of potential buyers. So, but really the key to that, the first piece of creative, the top of funnel creative for when people just see you, is a hero's journey ad. So anyone who's familiar with ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson, then it's the Epiphany Bridge story, the hero's journey. That is telling the story of them and how they started doing what they do in a 2 to 3 minute video. And these videos, time and time again, are just insanely powerful, like telling your backstory in an endearing way, which starts at the point of high drama, which touches on, again, like we discussed in this call a couple of times, like the real kind of down points of learning what you did and how you overcame your failures, etc. Really creates that deep bond. If you can take your viewer on a journey from where they currently are when you were in their situation, and then show them the path through in a 2 to 3 minute ad, then it's game over,
So yeah, I mean, I've lived everything you're saying, and I just couldn't agree more. I'm going to tell the audience, if you haven't lived what Dave is saying, trust me, what he's saying is 100% truth. And by the way, if you do live it, you'll change your life. So let's lean into it. I want to clarify a few of the terms that you used with what you just said, because I don't want to assume that everybody knows what all this means. First of all, you talked about the hero's journey. This is worth a read. If you go on, Google, I think you can go on Wikipedia and look up either hero's journey or Joseph Campbell, and which Joseph, Brunson has kind of famously taken it and applied it to digital marketing, but Joseph Campbell is kind of the creator of the hero's journey. It's called a monomyth theory. Is basically that every myth, every great legend is essentially just one story being retold with different characters. That's this heroic arc of, the disenfranchised hero who, faces the battles and then overcomes them. There's a whole archetype for it. But that is really, and what I find is a lot of business owners or business, even if it's not the owner, it's essentially the presentation of the problem that the product solves. They have a hard time connecting the hero's journey concept to their business, because some of it's just like modesty. They're like, well, I'm not a hero, but that's not the point. The point is every hero's journey is about slaying dragons and solving problems and reaching a land of milk and honey, so to speak, right? Any business that's out in the market telling the customer, you have a problem, we can solve the problem. If that's not rooted in a story of how they first solved the problem for themselves, or at least maybe solved it for someone else, you don't have a business. You don't have an offer. So if you're struggling to make that connection, you might have to really look at your business and say, who have I ever solved the problem for? Hopefully starting with myself. What battles did I have to fight? And how do I construct a narrative to tell it in a heroic way? Like, that's it. That's, so anyway, you talked about that. And then you also talked about top of funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel, and different creative types that are appropriate at those stages. Can you kind of give more of a layperson explanation of both the terms and also why the different types of creative connect to those different stages?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to touch back on what you were saying about storytelling then, because that's really important. It kind of leads into what we'll discuss on those terms. Something really interesting is that storytelling is how we've learned to learn as human beings, right? So ever since we're kids, ever since we're babies, we're told stories to understand the world around us. And therefore, that's how we're programmed as human beings to take on information and to retain it better and to understand it better. And that's why, mastering that concept of storytelling, especially in advertising, where you're grabbing people's attention, whether in a lower state of, usually in pattern, usually in a lower state of consciousness, trying to grab their attention and communicate to them while they're not really concentrating, is hugely, hugely powerful. To give an example as well of just to try and provide a bit more value for anybody who thinks that their business isn't capable of a story. One client that we worked with a few years ago, they were in debt recovery, like the driest possible thing you could imagine, right? And we basically dramatized one of their customers' journeys with literally, I knocked this up in an afternoon with no budget whatsoever. Like, it was literally still frames that I got from Pixabay and emotional music, which was like $19, and overlaid it with some text, just kind of animated text in I think it was in iMovie, not even Final Cut. And it took an afternoon to make. It cost absolutely nothing, $19 max for the music track. We took the cost per booked call from $150 overnight to $15 the next day, just by storytelling, just by telling a semi-fictionalized story of one of their clients who'd overcome debt by working with them. So that's really powerful for anyone listening. If you master that principle in advertising, that's like half the battle. To go to lead that into the top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel concept. So top of funnel is usually that type of content. So you're having to get somebody from a cold prospect who's never heard of you before. They're probably extremely skeptical because, let's be honest, there's lots of scams and crap going around on the internet. They've probably been banned a few times, whether it be in your industry.
And the world's just so crowded. They don't understand why they should give you any attention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you bear no relevance to them at all. You might as well be a stranger passing in the street. So you need to give them a reason to pay attention. And that reason really has to do with them. As much as you're telling your story, you need to connect with them. The idea is that you're having them walk a mile in your shoes and see your journey and imagine themselves as you on the journey towards success. So if you're a coach, for example, then it's about your backstory and how, you figured out how to do what you do now and leading them to the promised land, leading them to, the destination that they want to go to. So typically that top of funnel content is that kind of thing. So it's more story driven. It's more attention grabbing. It's more, taking people from not knowing you whatsoever to ideally a purchase. You will get a certain amount of purchases from there, but if that's where you're stopping, you're missing out on 75% of your sales. Because then the middle of funnel is then when you retarget people who've shown intent. So it could be people who watched 50 or 75% of your video. So they've watched a 5-minute video, they've watched 3 to 4 minutes of it. Or if they click through to your landing page, or if they've clicked through to initiate checkout, so they've actually got to cart. So that's a very hot audience, and they're the kind of people that you can retarget quite aggressively and get them over the edge, because they've shown high intent, they've shown enough intent to actually click through and get to your cart. So the chances are they just got distracted, like the cat ran over the laptop and knocked the coffee over, something like that, or they're not quite ready to buy, the wallet's on the other side of the room. So you just need to keep reminding that person. And it's funny, I was talking to somebody the other day, because I always analyze my own thinking when I'm thinking about buying something. I was lying in bed the other night, just kind of winding down, and I came across an ad for something which a fitness-related product, which was quite relevant to me at the time. And I sat and watched the webinar, and just as I was going to sleep, I thought, I'll buy that in the morning, but I'm not going to get up and walk into the lounge and get my wallet right now. And pretty well 5 or 6 times over the next couple of days, I thought, I need to buy that thing. oh yeah, I need to buy that thing. And then I got an email. It's like, yeah, I'll do that shortly. And it kind of highlighted to me, it's really easy as an advertiser to lose sight of people's kind of consciousness and think, people didn't buy the first time round, this isn't working. Whereas in reality, there's probably a whole sea of people that are sat there waiting just for the right opportune moment for you to hit them with an ad, and then suddenly they go over the line. A really interesting way to see this is if you run Facebook ads, if you open up the metric on the add the column and open up the metric, the amount of people who saved your post. And it could be tens of thousands of people that have saved your post that didn't buy. So they've obviously got an intent to buy, right? But then they'll save your post and it probably goes into the vault of things that they might buy again in the future. Whereas if you keep following up with them intelligently and with the right content, which is what will lead into middle of funnel content, that's how you really get them over the edge. And that middle of funnel is basically retargeting those people. So it's showing them other people that have had success, so testimonials, and showing them case studies. It's showing them a slightly different take, maybe more content-based videos, which are kind of value-based videos, teaching them how to do something, showing them that you can help them by actually helping them. And then the bottom of funnel stuff is for the really hot traffic. So people who've been through all of that. So they've watched 75% of your top of funnel video, and then also engaged with middle of funnel, or they've been through and they've initiated checkout. They've shown very, very high intent. That bottom of funnel is just for knocking those people over the edge.
Yeah. And I just can't emphasize enough. This may sound like, an advanced, kind of more challenging, more sophisticated concept for people. But it's, first of all, it's not if you're not in such a hurry. I think the problem a lot of people have is, and maybe my bias is that I deal with thousands of people that are kind of new to this stuff and they're trying to assimilate it really fast and then go get a quick result. And it's like, no, it's like learning a language. Like Greek is not complicated. It's just different. Yeah. Greek isn't more complicated than English. It's just different. You have the ability to learn Greek because you have the ability to learn English. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that it's going to happen really fast. And it doesn't mean that the fact that it doesn't happen really fast means that it's inordinately difficult. It just means you haven't given it enough time. And so I want to encourage people that the concept you're describing, it may sound like a lot at first. It's really not complicated. It's like, if you go up to a girl and you're like, see a pretty girl, and you go up, the way you approach that conversation is different than if you happen to bump into her a few days later at the mall and you're like, hey, remember, hey, it's Jeff. I chatted you up at the bank and oh my gosh, it's good to see you. Like, how is it? And then, oh yeah, what are you doing here? Yeah, I'm just shopping. And now you're thinking like, what can I tell her that makes me sound more interesting? Like, oh yeah, I'm just here to check out the exhibit on 18th century impressionists, whatever, because I'm trying to sound cool. And then if she's like, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. You know what? We should get together and talk about that. And now you meet at a coffee shop. Well, now you know that it's kind of like, there's some energy here. So I'm going to have a totally different conversation. That's top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. We all do it all the time. We just freak out when it's in this context. So just give it time. I mean, am I right? Like, this is not rocket science. It's just, it escapes a lot of people and they lose. Literally, it's the difference between changing your life by having a really profitable, mostly automated business, or struggling, getting frustrated, and never quitting your job.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, it's so powerful. And it's, I guess, the way I kind of rattled through it just a second ago, like if you were listening to that the first time you'd ever come across this concept, then yeah, 100%, it would sound complicated. But if you sketch this out on a whiteboard and you just say, okay, this is what people see when they don't know who the hell you are. This is what people see when they've considered potentially buying your stuff. And this is what people see when you just need to remind them about what it is. Then putting it in place is really simple, man. Like Facebook like money, funny enough, YouTube like money. Yeah. They want you to spend it, and they make their platforms really, really user friendly. I can't say much for the support on Facebook, but the actual interface is a child could use it, right? It's so simple. And really the most important thing is understanding, again, it goes back to what we discussed already on this call is the messaging. It's the video, the messaging, and it's understanding your actual customer psyche of when they first see you, what they need to hear, what objections they've got, what, how you can kind of display that content to them in a way which is engaging and which is influential.
Yeah. And so if somebody wants to see this in action, I'm sure you could give a million examples. I will say this, go opt into one of my pages. And I'm not, I will warn you, we're pretty good at selling stuff. So you might end up buying something, but that's not my intent. What I want you to do is, in fact, don't buy, because I want you to stay in the funnel.
Try not to buy.
Don't buy right away. Try not to buy. Resist. Like go put your wallet in your car so you don't have your credit card, and then come opt into our stuff. And what you'll see is, first of all, you'll see, well, I guess we wouldn't see an ad because you'd be going direct to a landing page in this scenario. But consider this the ad, right? Like we're enticing you. You're coming in. That's top of the funnel. And then you opt in. And then I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to be on Facebook or Instagram, and you're going to see snippets that are actually excerpts from my YouTube content, which is all just training. It's just further demonstrating my competence, my value, my intention to serve, my expertise, and to hope, you'll either love me or hate me, but at least you'll know. That's the intent, is to help you make a decision. And then if you still don't buy, you're going to get little quick. The way we do our bottom of the funnel is we'll shoot you a little video that says, hey, this is Jeff. I saw that you took a look at the offer. You didn't purchase. We get a lot of different questions from people that are on the fence. So I want to answer one of those questions for you right now. Maybe you're wondering, how do I know if this can work for me? And then I'll give like a little 60-second answer to that particular question. And I have a series of like 9 of them that basically cover the 9 different questions that are stopping people from buying. And if you stay in my funnel long enough, you'll see every one of those videos. And eventually you will have seen my ad, top of the funnel. Then you will have seen a bunch of my content in little bite-sized pieces, middle of the funnel. Then I will have addressed all your specific concerns, bottom of the funnel. And at that point, you're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
Did I accurate? I guess I'm asking for your consulting. Like, are we doing it right?
100%, man.
Yeah.
And that, what you touched on there is huge. And this is another really important thing to consider for any funnel whatsoever, is listening to your customers and listening to their objections. Yeah. To give you a perfect example of this, we started working with a client lately, and they've got the best offer in the world. I can't really say too much about them, but they've got the best offer in the world. It's incredible. Saves you a bunch of money, and it lets you do good stuff, and it's wholesome and brilliant. And they worked with a bunch of agencies, and they couldn't get it off the ground. Like, for whatever reason, it just wasn't clicking. So we came on and we were like, oh, okay, yeah, we can fix this. So we launched some ads, and it didn't work out the gate. We're like, oh, what's going on? Like, we put our best stuff behind this. So we started listening to the sales calls. So we listened to the recordings of the sales calls, and we listened to what people were saying. And that is huge. We have all new clients who are starting to do high ticket, or they're quite early on, or they're launching a new funnel. We always get them to get on a phone call with everybody who opted in with their cell number. Just to give them a call and say, hey, I saw you opted in. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Just wanted to find out a bit more about like what your thought process was. Those conversations are absolute gold. And also listening back to sales conversations with sales guys in this particular situation are absolute gold. Because what we found after about 3 or 4 of these conversations is that most people thought it was too good to be true. Yeah. They thought, you must be taking us for we can't possibly see how you're making money out of this without it being a scam. So we went back to the drawing board. We re-engineered the ads themselves, and we addressed the elephant in the room. We showed them exactly what, like, completely cards on the table. This is how we do it. And sure enough, the next day, like, sales start popping through. They've actually just hired a new sales team to take the new influx of sales that they're coming through, sales leads that are coming through.
Huh. Yeah, that's so interesting. And it's funny. Yeah, sometimes when the offer is too good, it begs credibility. I have found, frankly, that the more, I mean, I've been a digital marketer for 12 years now, right? Like, it's getting bigger every year, every month. It's like, I've made this much online. And it keeps going up. I hurt myself the bigger the number gets, because people don't believe it. Because I'm saying, listen, Entre Institute, we teach these specific business models. These are all the same things that I've done. I've won these awards. The awards are pretty good because you can't fake those. But then when I say, in total, in 12 years, I've been able to generate this much from these types of businesses, it's literally at the point where I just stopped saying it. Because and I remember going all the way back when I knew an affiliate marketer back in the day who ran a business opportunity offer. It was kind of like an MLM. And this guy was making like $120,000 a month. And he didn't have any scruples. He would just say whatever. And he actually found that when he said his sweet spot was when he said, I make up to $17,000 a month with this program.
Right.
And if he went any higher, conversion started to drop. If he went lower, conversion started to drop. 17 was like his perfect nexus point for optimization. And so it is interesting how like sometimes the offer's too good and it stretches credulity.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? You know, and I guess it's in those kind of situations, it's people have a certain perception of. So, for example, like the perception of $1 million, right? Like I think most I don't want to say average people, but there's a good segment of society that would say $1 million is just like an unbelievable amount of money. But then when you start to break it down, so okay, well you make $1,000 products and you sell 1,000 of them. It's like, oh, okay, right, yeah. So that's a doable thing. So it's those kind of concepts of money are, you know, something which I think people really kind of struggle to get over. But that's fascinating. I didn't, you know, never imagined something like that cap out around about 17,000 a month.
It was so fun. I've never forgotten the lesson. I mean, I'll give you an example. I have my ebook, right? The Millionaire Shortcut. I have a copy of it in my hands. I personally don't think being a millionaire really is that great in this world. I'm not saying it's not a big achievement, but you know, you live in England. How the hell are you going to live off $1 million for the rest of your life? You know, how you got, you know, you probably need at least 5. I argue that depending where you live in the world, you probably need 5 to 10.
Yeah.
To like be totally set, safe. You've got a fortress built around you. You can live off of passive investments and your kids are going to be taken care of. Like it takes more than $1 million. But if I write a book called the $10 million Shortcut, it literally will not convert as well as the Millionaire Shortcut.
Yeah.
It's just funny the things we have to consider in our market. I mean, here I'm giving all my secrets away, but it's, you know, you got to meet the market where they are. Yeah. You know, I you know, some point I'd love to get some billionaires on this show. In fact, I had a guy on yesterday who sold his company for $1 billion. But if I started calling this show Billionaire Secrets, I don't think it would get nearly the audience.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, that doesn't apply to me.
Yeah, right. So it's the attainable goal. There's so much interesting stuff around the pricing strategy. One of my first business partners, he had an e-commerce slipper business, and they had they had free shipping on all orders on their website. Yeah, and they changed it so it was free. It was always free. They changed it to $1 or £1 shipping anywhere in the world, and the conversions shot up.
I'll bet it went up.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, because people, part of it is disbelief, and part of it is not just the trust of if it's real or not, but the expectation of the value they're going to get. People would rather pay $1 to have. I mean, this is my theory. I don't know the situation, but for me, I would like rather pay a little bit so that I've got some accountability, so that I can call up and be like, "Where the hell's my order? I paid for shipping."
Yeah.
Whereas if I didn't pay for shipping, it's almost like, it'll probably just get here when it gets here. And, you know, you get what you pay for, and I didn't pay anything, so I might not get anything.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
So it's so interesting. And the thing I love about our industry, and for all the business owners out there that are listening to this, who go, how the hell am I supposed to know what's what? You don't have to guess. You test everything. Split testing. If you master one skill in business, it's identifying variables, locking down all the controls around those variables, and testing those variables, and then moving on to the next variable and moving on to the next variable. And when you get really good at cycling through all the variables in your business and constantly optimizing them, like you can take a business that's losing has a negative 50% profit margin and turn it into a positive 400% profit margin through all these tiny little incremental gains. It's just amazing. Well, Dave, I'm sorry. I wish we didn't have to end. I'm like, we're just like two gamers talking about Fortnite or something. It's just, this stuff is so cool. But I've checked out your site, man. I know that what Grip is doing. In fact, you have a testimonial on your site, Hernan, who's actually the manager of our marketing department here at Entre. He's a brilliant guy. So if he's a fan of you, then I know you're good.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I love Hernan. So anyways, how can the world that wants to learn more about, whether it's you personally, whether it's listening, you play violin, whether it's learning about your ads, learning about your agency, where would you send people?
I'm sure there's a few videos of me playing violin, probably in a slightly drinking state, knocking around the internet. But yeah, so if you want to find out about Grip, then it's gripadvertising.com. Then you can see a bunch of what we do in the real world, out in the wild. If you're interested in more of the kind of viral principles, then you can grab a copy of my book, which is called Read This If You Want to Go Viral. You just go to readthisviralbook.com and you can take a look at that. So there's plenty of nuggets in there regards to all the stuff that I discovered when I was mailing people grilled cheese sandwiches and what we've taken into direct response advertising today. So basically how to get more attention and how to turn more of it into sales.
Yeah, I definitely support your expertise in that. I will tell you, as a musician, I actually posted a video on Instagram. I made an Instagram TV video this morning playing an old song. I just found an old notebook of songs and I just played it and sang it. And it's for day one views, it's the most popular IGTV video I think I've ever had.
Really?
So as an old musician, I will tell you that you can really kind of diversify and warm up your brand and get a lot of maybe new eyeballs if you bust out that violin.
Well, I've got this thing, funnily enough, just it's my old touring violin. Took around the world. It's just
oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's on the wall. Every now and again I get it out, so I might start making some videos.
Yeah, throw that stuff out there, man. Those are some of my, I do it very infrequently and they're always, it gets a different type of engagement, you know?
Yeah. I saw the one of you with the piano, sat down at the piano talking about the injury. That's a great video on YouTube.
Oh yeah. Thank you, man. Well, Dave, this has been amazing. I look forward to staying in touch. Unfortunately, we got to wrap this conversation. Thanks for all this incredible value. You know, anybody that heard this conversation and was like, oh, that was kind of nerdy and technical. Listen to it again. Listen to it 2, 3, 4, 5 times in the world. The overlap, I say this all the time, the overlap of marketing and digital technology is the realm of the modern day superpower. When you get this, the intersection of direct response marketing principles and how they play out through these digital platforms, you literally become a superhero in this world. Meaning, if you want to go live on a beach in Tahiti and make millions of dollars, you can do it. If you want to live in the suburbs in Albany, New York, and raise a family of 8 and never want for money, you can do it. If you want to buy a boat and sail around the world, you can do it with these powers. And I don't know there's that many other powers that'll give you that freedom.
If you loved that episode, then you're definitely gonna love this one. Check it out.
If they can understand the value the way you understand the value, it will drive your stock up, metaphorically and literally.